winners? Let the pros show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a regular contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the online betting industry. Together, they lead PickNation.com, your #1 source for winners.
Here we are, week number 6 in the NFL season. The kickoff just hours away. I am Al DeMarco along with Steve Budin. This is the PickNation.com report, where every single Sunday we're breaking down all your games from a point spread perspective. If you happen to be joining us for the second half of the show, having watched the first half hour over on FoxSports.com or in Vegas TV, welcome back here. Remember, you can catch the entire show, any portion of it, right here on PickNation.com all day long. Before we get to our next game that we're going to break down, which is going to be the New York Giants-Buffalo contest, you know, Steve, as a former bookmaker, you know as well as I do, the public is always enamored with the favorites. And again, this season, the favorites have just been a money-burning proposition. Favorites are 4 games under 500 so far this year. And home teams are 2 games under 500 this season. We mentioned at the outset of the show that 10 of the 11 games today, you've got a home favorite. You know, when the dogs are barking at a consistent clip, only 2 things are happening, and they're both bad. Gamblers are losing a lot of money, and sports books are making a hell of a lot of cash.
That's absolutely true. And you know what? Another thing is the marquee teams. When the marquee teams are going down at home and they're favorite, you know the gamblers are getting crushed, because these are the teams that historically they've always gone to whenever they're in a crunch. Teams like the Steelers, teams like the Giants, and they're not coming through for them the way they used to.
Sure, look at last week. I mean, the Saints, a marquee team, everybody in love with Drew Brees, couldn't get the job done against Carolina. Philadelphia, the team that everybody was enamored with at the start of this season, has just been a money burner, 4 straight losses and 4 straight failures to cover. The Atlanta Falcons, another team that people really thought had a shot at getting to the Super Bowl this year, blows a 14-0 lead last week in their latest failure to cover.
Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys, there's another one. I mean, so, you know, it's one of those things. Now, here's something interesting. If you had that magical crystal ball and it just could pick the straight-up winners of every single game, you'd win a fortune, because the straight-up winners went 12-1 against the spread last week. They are 60, 14, and 3 on the season, 46 games over 500. But this should come as no surprise, because regular season, preseason, and postseason, the past 2 years, they hit at a near 85% clip. But again, it comes down to something you mentioned in the first half hour of the show, that suspension of disbelief. If you could just pick up the card and go, oh, this team and this team and this team is going to win straight up, and just go, I'm just going to bet them. Guys, I can tell you it's an 85% play over 3 years.
Yeah, and that's why the 3 and the 14 teasers are such sucker bets, because you wind up winning 3 out of your 4 selections straight up without the teaser points. You lose 1, you blow the teaser, you would have won 3 out of 4 if you just left the teaser alone.
I mean, teasers, you know, I like a standard 2-teamer where you're just playing with 6 points. You can have all those extra points, but just realize more teams in the teaser, the odds are mathematically stacked against you to try to win. And as a former bookmaker, you must have loved it when these guys are calling in. I'll take the 4-team teaser. Right. I'll take the 9-team teaser, the 10-team round robin. I mean, it's like the gravy on top of the mashed potatoes. It's more money for your bank.
They thought as a bookmaker I was in business to give them money. I got news for you. Bookmakers are in business to take your money. That's why we're here to help.
Okay, with that being said, let's get to the next game on the board. It's going to be the Giants-Buffalo game. The Giants, a horrific performance last week at home against Seattle. But when you think back to it, you know, 2 weeks ago they were at Arizona. They needed a furious fourth-quarter comeback and rally to get the win. Then came out really playing an awful game against a Seattle team that was traveling cross-country, playing at 10 o'clock Seattle time in the morning, and yet the Seahawks win the game outright. I mean, there were some positives to take out of it, that the Giants' defense forced 3 turnovers, that they had 6 sacks in the game. Problem is, you know, Eli Manning kept giving the ball back to Seattle.
Eli Manning back to his old tricks again. 3 interceptions in that game. He led the league in interceptions last year. Funny you mentioned the Giants' defense. They could be arrested arrested for domestic violence the way they get after quarterbacks when they're home in New York. I think they're going to do that. I think the quarterback for the Bills,
Ryan
Fitzpatrick, better have eyes behind his head because they're going to be coming for blood. I always like the Giants after they get embarrassed in a game. They always seem to come back and play tough in that next game. I think this is a situation where we might see that. I'm hoping they just overlook Seattle, one of the worst road teams in the league, just didn't get up for the game. I'm hoping they come back now with a vengeance. I think it's a good spot to lay the 3 with the Giants.
And listen, I think, again, here you look at the line and you look at how the public has created this line. They see the Bills, they just beat the Eagles. Oh, my God, they beat the Patriots. I mean, they beat a lot of teams, but they're constantly preying on the other team's mistakes. The Eagles, Michael Vick, the 4 interceptions last week, literally gave Buffalo that game.
Buffalo was hanging on for dear life in that game. It was no lock for them. They were hanging on tight.
Yeah, I mean, Eagles had 1 touchdown that was called back. They settled for a field goal because of a bad penalty. The closing drive for the Philadelphia, I mean,
ripped the ball out of the guy's hand.
Right, a turnover there. They could have driven in. I think they were at the 27-yard line going for the game-tying touchdown. I look at the Bills' season this way. I go, this is a team that went to Cincinnati and was up 17-3 in their last road game, and they lost that game 23-20. This is a young team, much like the Detroit Lions I mentioned earlier in the show. A young team that's learning how to win, not a lot of experience, and this line is a bad line. If the Giants had beaten Seattle last week, I swear to God.
6.5.
Absolutely, 6.5 in this game. To me, Giants are a value play, probably the best value play on today's card.
We're in lockstep.
Okay, next one is going to be Baltimore and Houston. You've got the Ravens coming off the bye. You've got Houston. You know, if you just looked at the box score of last week's game against Oakland, you'll see that they outgained the Raiders 473 yards to 278. But they managed to lose the game. They lost the game to the Raiders. One of the reasons, Matt Schaub, 2 costly interceptions, including one when they were, I think, on the 5-yard line with like 8 seconds remaining, picked off, giving the Raiders the win. Interesting that Houston's 0-4 against the spread the last 4 times they've been cast as a dog. They've only covered 2 of their last 8 road games. Ravens coming off the bye. But, boy, they've looked devastating at home this season against the Jets and the Steelers.
They certainly have, but I don't know that it's Flacco necessarily. I think it's a team effort. I think it's a lot of great defense as well. 7.5 points. Ton of points to give Matt Schaub. End of the game, he comes down, backdoors you without a problem, especially against a prevent defense when it doesn't matter. I'm really worried about the 7.5 points here. Originally, when I saw it, I was thinking 2-team teaser, but I remind myself every time that I think of that, why not just take the points? That's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take the 7.5 points.
Oh, really? I see. Yep. I think the other way to go. I think the way to go in this game is to lay the points with the Ravens. They've covered 13 of their last 15 outside of the division, so they prey on patsies. Not that Houston is a patsy, but Houston also has injury concerns.
Key offensive
Andre
injuries.
Johnson is still out, the wide receiver. They lost Mario Williams, who was really a key to Wade Phillips' new 3-4 defensive scheme. They put him an outside linebacker to take advantage of his pass rushing skills. So he's still out of the lineup probably for the rest of the year. You know, I like the Ravens in this one. They've covered 8 of their last 9 off a bye. Like you, I thought about maybe putting them in a teaser. They're not going to lose the game. So in a 2-team teaser, taking the Ravens at -1.5 points, I think is an absolute bargain. I don't necessarily have the other half of that.
That's the problem.
Exactly. So that's why I would go ahead and play the Baltimore straight up. And listen, since we're talking in the final minute here of this portion, we were talking about the Oakland-Cleveland game. You know, I look at what happened with the Raiders and Houston last week as one of those freak statistical anomalies. Sometimes you look at a game and you say, how did this team not win? And that's the case with the Texans. Yet they didn't win the game, and sometimes that happens in the NFL because the Raiders had the emotion last week with Al Davis passing away prior to the game.
I think they carry that emotion through this week. It's the first home game, you know, since Al Davis's death, and that's why I like them actually in the first half. I like the Raiders in the first half this week. I think they're going to come out guns blazing. I think it'll settle down by halftime. You get -3 in the first half with the Raiders. I love that play.
Hey, and I'll give you my impressions on that game between Oakland and Cleveland, 5.5-point choice. Remember, Trace Adams, one of the handicappers, one of the top handicappers in the business, in fact, at PickNation.com, was with us in the first half hour of the show. He had a pick on this game as well. You can watch any portion of the show in its entirety right here on PickNation.com. Guys, we'll be back after this short commercial break with the next part of our program.